There are moments in life that don't need to be explained. You simply feel them. And maybe this is one of those moments if you've been waiting for a sign, wondering whether someone is truly coming into your life, wondering whether the distance, the silence, or the uncertainty has a meaning, then listen closely, because sometimes love doesn't arrive with noise. It arrives quietly. It finds you when you've stopped searching. It appears in a moment when your heart is finally ready to recognize it. And if I could say just one thing to the person I love, it would be this: I'm coming to you, my love. So don't miss this moment. Don't let fear convince you to walk away. Don't let doubt make you close the door before something beautiful has had the chance to begin. Maybe we don't know exactly where this road leads. Maybe we can't see every step ahead of us, but perhaps we don't need to. Perhaps all we need is the courage to take the next step together. There are moments in life that arrive so quietly that you almost miss them. They don't announce themselves. They don't knock loudly on the door of your heart. They simply appear, almost unnoticed, and wait for you to recognize what they mean. And sometimes, the most important moments of our lives look ordinary while we're living them. A message that arrives at the right time, a conversation that lasts a little longer than expected, a familiar name appearing on your screen, a feeling you thought you had buried suddenly returning with a kind of warmth you can't explain. And somewhere inside you, something begins to whisper that maybe this isn't an accident. Maybe there are people we meet at the wrong time but never truly forget. Maybe there are connections that survive distance, silence, misunderstandings, and years, because something about them reached deeper than words. You can try to move forward. You can fill your days with other things. You can tell yourself that it was just a chapter and that chapters are meant to end. But sometimes the heart remembers what the mind tried to release. Sometimes a person can leave your life without leaving your soul completely. And when that feeling returns, it doesn't always come back to hurt you. Sometimes it comes back because you're finally strong enough to understand it. I want you to imagine for a moment that the person you have been waiting for is closer than you think. Not necessarily standing outside your door, not necessarily appearing exactly the way you imagined, but moving toward you in their own way. Maybe they have been fighting their own fears. Maybe they have been learning how to let go of the past. Maybe they have been trying to understand what they really want. Maybe they needed time to become someone capable of giving love without running from it. And maybe, while you were wondering why nothing was happening, something was happening quietly in both of you. That's the strange thing about love. We often think it is about finding someone, but sometimes it's about becoming someone who is ready to receive what we have been asking for. You can want love desperately and still be afraid of it. You can miss someone and still refuse to reach out. You can care deeply and still protect yourself so completely that nobody can get close enough to see what is inside you. Fear has a way of disguising itself as wisdom. It tells you to wait, it tells you to be careful, it tells you that you've been hurt before, so you should never open that door again. And sometimes caution protects us. But sometimes it only keeps us from experiencing something beautiful. There comes a point when you have to ask yourself a different question. Not what if this goes wrong, but what if this is the moment I've been waiting for? What if the person coming toward you isn't here to repeat the pain of your past? What if they are here to show you that love can feel different when two people have learned from what broke them? What if the silence between you wasn't the end? What if it was simply the space both of you needed to grow? I'm coming to you, my love. Those words aren't about possession. They aren't about chasing someone who doesn't want to be found. They aren't about forcing destiny or pretending that love can solve every problem. They are about movement, about choosing to stop standing still when your heart knows there is somewhere it needs to go. I'm coming to you means I'm willing to take a step. It means I'm willing to leave behind the excuses that kept me comfortable. I'm willing to admit that I care. I'm willing to be honest about what I feel. I'm willing to risk being vulnerable, because hiding forever isn't the same thing as being safe. And maybe you need to hear that today. Maybe you've been waiting for someone to tell you that it's okay to believe in love again. Maybe you've spent so much time convincing yourself that you don't need anyone, that you've forgotten how beautiful it can be to share life with someone who truly sees you. Not the version of you that performs for the world, not the version that always says everything is fine. The real you, the tired you, the uncertain you, the hopeful you, the person who has scars but still wants to love. Real love doesn't require perfection, it requires presence. It requires two people willing to say, I see you and I'm still here. There is something powerful about being seen without having to explain every wound. There is something peaceful about sitting beside someone and not feeling the need to fill every silence. There is something rare about finding a person who doesn't make you question whether you are worthy of being loved. Maybe that's what you've been waiting for, not someone who completes you, because you were never incomplete, but someone who walks beside you while you continue becoming who you were meant to be. Someone who doesn't ask you to shrink so they can feel bigger. Someone who doesn't make you earn basic kindness. Someone who doesn't disappear whenever things become difficult. Someone who understands that love isn't only found in beautiful moments. It's also found in patience, in forgiveness, in listening, in staying when leaving would be easier, in choosing to understand before choosing to judge. And maybe the person coming toward you has learned those lessons too. Maybe they had to lose something before they understood its value. Maybe they had to experience loneliness before they understood the importance of companionship. Maybe they had to make mistakes before they learned how to communicate. Maybe they had to walk away from certain people before they understood what genuine connection actually feels like. Life has a strange way of teaching us through absence. Sometimes you don't understand someone's importance until they aren't there. Sometimes you don't understand your own heart until you are forced to sit alone with it. And sometimes distance doesn't destroy love. It reveals whether the love was real enough to survive the distance. But if someone is truly coming toward you, you don't have to meet them halfway by abandoning yourself. You don't have to become someone else. You don't have to pretend you're unaffected. You don't have to hide your feelings because you're afraid of looking foolish. There is no shame in caring. There is no weakness in saying, I missed you. There is no weakness in admitting you matter to me. We live in a world where people often pretend not to care because caring makes them vulnerable. They leave messages unanswered because they want to appear powerful. They walk away first because they are afraid of being left. They turn love into a game because honesty feels too dangerous. But what if we stopped playing? What if we simply told the truth? What if instead of asking who has more power, we asked who has more courage? Because sometimes the strongest person in the room is the one who can say, I love you, without knowing exactly what will happen next. The heart doesn't always need certainty. Sometimes it needs honesty. And if you're hearing these words while thinking about someone specific, perhaps you already know what this means to you. Perhaps there's a face in your mind right now, a voice you haven't heard in too long, a memory that still makes you smile even when you try not to. Perhaps there is a person whose name carries a different weight when you say it. Don't ignore what that feeling is teaching you. But don't confuse longing with destiny either. Love should never require you to lose your dignity. It should never demand that you chase someone who repeatedly chooses to hurt you. It should never ask you to accept disrespect simply because you have strong feelings. The love worth returning to is the love that can meet you with honesty. The love worth protecting is the love where both people are willing to grow. The love worth waiting for is the love that doesn't ask you to wait forever without explanation. And perhaps that's why this moment matters, because moments pass, people change, doors open and close, and sometimes we don't realize that we are standing at the edge of a new chapter until the old one has already begun to fade behind us. You may have spent years thinking that your story was supposed to happen differently. Maybe you imagined love arriving earlier. Maybe you thought you would already have the person, the home, the family, the peace you dreamed about. But life doesn't always follow the schedule we create for it. Sometimes the delay isn't punishment. Sometimes it is preparation. Sometimes the person you wanted wasn't ready. Sometimes you weren't ready. Sometimes the circumstances were wrong. And sometimes both people needed to become stronger before they could build something that wouldn't collapse under the weight of their old wounds. So don't hate the waiting. Learn from it. The waiting taught you what you will no longer accept. It taught you how to stand alone. It taught you that your happiness cannot depend entirely on another person's presence. It taught you that love should add to your life, not become the only reason you believe your life has meaning. And now, if someone is coming toward you, you can meet them from a place of wholeness instead of desperation. You can say, I want you, without saying, I cannot live without you. You can love deeply without losing yourself. You can give your heart without giving away your identity. You can walk beside someone without forgetting your own direction. That's a different kind of love, a mature love, a quiet love. A love that doesn't need to prove itself every 5 minutes because it is built on something deeper than temporary excitement, and maybe that's what is waiting for you. Not a perfect love, a real one. A love with ordinary mornings and difficult conversations, a love with laughter that comes unexpectedly, a love where two people sometimes misunderstand each other and then choose to communicate instead of disappearing. A love where apologies are meaningful because behavior changes afterward. A love where holding someone's hand can say more than 1,000 dramatic promises. Maybe your greatest romantic moment won't be something extraordinary. Maybe it will be sitting beside someone you once thought you had lost and realizing that neither of you wants to run anymore. Maybe it will be hearing, "I'm here," and knowing they mean it. Maybe it will be looking into their eyes and realizing that the person you've been waiting for isn't arriving as a fantasy. They're arriving as a human being, with fears, with flaws, with history, with dreams, with imperfections. And perhaps you'll finally understand that love was never about finding someone without wounds. It was about finding someone willing to heal without making you responsible for their healing. Someone willing to grow, someone willing to communicate, someone willing to choose you freely, and you willing to choose them freely too. So if this is your moment, don't miss it because you're waiting for perfect conditions. There may never be perfect conditions, there may only be honest ones. There may only be a moment when two people finally decide that fear has taken enough from them, that silence has lasted long enough, that pride has become too expensive, that the past deserves to stay where it belongs behind them, and the future deserves a chance in front of them. I'm coming to you, my love, not because I have every answer, not because I know exactly what tomorrow will look like, but because I know that some people are worth approaching with an open heart. Some connections deserve another conversation. Some memories deserve to be understood rather than forgotten. And some moments deserve to be lived instead of analyzed until they disappear. If you're coming toward me, don't be afraid of what happens after we meet. We don't have to know everything today. We don't have to solve the entire future tonight. We only have to be honest about this moment. We only have to stand here and acknowledge what brought us back to each other. Maybe that's enough. Maybe love begins again not with a grand promise, but with two people finally putting down the armor they no longer need. Maybe it begins with a simple look. A quiet smile, a hand reaching out, a voice saying, "I thought about you," and another voice answering, "I thought about you too." There are moments in life when the heart knows before the mind can explain. And if this is one of those moments, be present for it. Don't rush it, don't force it, don't turn it into something it isn't. Just allow yourself to feel, lob yourself to hope, lob yourself to believe that your story isn't finished, simply because one chapter hurt. You are allowed to begin again, you are allowed to love again, you are allowed to meet someone without carrying every mistake from your past into the room. And if someone is walking toward you with sincere intentions, let them arrive. Meet them with honesty. Meet them with patience. Meet them without pretending you don't care. Because sometimes the greatest tragedy isn't loving and losing. Sometimes it's having the opportunity to love and being too afraid to open the door. So when that moment comes, when the person you've been thinking about finally appears, when the message arrives, when the conversation begins, when the distance suddenly feels smaller, don't immediately ask yourself how it could fail. Ask yourself what could happen if, for once, you allowed something beautiful to unfold without trying to control every second of it. Maybe it won't be perfect, maybe it won't be easy, but maybe it will be real. And sometimes real is more beautiful than perfect. So, my love, if you're coming toward me, come as you are, bring your truth, bring your fears, bring your dreams, bring everything you've learned. I won't ask you to be someone you're not, and I won't promise you a life without difficult days. But I can promise that if we choose each other honestly, we can face those days differently, side by side, one moment at a time. And perhaps years from now, we'll look back at this moment and realize that everything changed when one of us finally found the courage to stop running. Maybe this was the moment. Maybe this was the door. Maybe this was the beginning. And maybe all we needed was the courage not to miss it. Sometimes the hardest thing about love is not finding it. It is having the courage to believe in it when it finally comes back to you. Fear has a quiet way of speaking. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it sounds like logic. It tells you to be careful. It reminds you of every disappointment you've ever experienced. It tells you that opening your heart again would be foolish, because you already know how much it can hurt. And because the voice sounds reasonable, you listen to it. But fear doesn't know everything. Fear knows what happened yesterday. It doesn't know what tomorrow could become. You may have been hurt before. You may have trusted someone who didn't value your heart. You may have given everything and received very little in return. You may have watched someone you loved walk away when you were still hoping they would stay. And after enough disappointment, the heart learns to build walls. Those walls can protect you, but they can also keep love outside. There comes a moment when you have to decide whether your past deserves to control your future. Not every person who enters your life will repeat the mistakes of the people who came before them. Not every goodbye means the next person will leave. Not every connection is destined to become another wound. Sometimes someone comes into your life with a different intention. Someone who isn't trying to change you, someone who isn't interested in playing games, someone who simply wants to be there. And when that person finally appears, you may not recognize the moment immediately because your heart has become accustomed to protecting itself. You may question everything. You may wonder if they're serious. You may look for signs that they're going to disappear. You may create distance before they've even given you a reason to fear them. And that's where love asks something difficult from you. It asks you to be brave, not reckless, not blind, brave. There is a difference. Being brave doesn't mean ignoring red flags or accepting pain. It means allowing yourself to see what is actually in front of you instead of assuming the future will always look like the past. It means giving someone the opportunity to show you who they are. It means listening. It means communicating. It means allowing trust to grow slowly instead of demanding certainty immediately. Because real trust isn't built in one conversation. It's built through consistency, through small promises kept, through difficult conversations handled with respect, through moments when someone could have walked away but chose to communicate, through the quiet evidence that says, I'm here, and I mean it. Maybe that's what your heart needs now. Not another dramatic promise, not another person who says everything you want to hear, but someone whose actions make the words unnecessary. Someone who doesn't need to convince you every day, because their presence already tells you enough, and maybe you need to become that kind of person too, because love isn't only about finding the right person. It's about becoming someone capable of sustaining the right relationship. You can't build something peaceful while constantly fighting ghosts from the past. You can't ask someone to prove they aren't the person who hurt you. They can show you who they are. But eventually, you have to allow yourself to see them. That's the difficult part. Sometimes the person in front of you is kind, but your past tells you to be suspicious. Sometimes they're patient, but your past tells you they're going to leave. Sometimes they love you openly, but your past tells you that love always comes with a price. And you have to learn to separate memory from reality. Your past is part of you, but it doesn't have to become your prophecy. You are not obligated to repeat the same story. You are not obligated to keep choosing the same kind of person. You are not obligated to close your heart forever because someone once mishandled it. There is still a future waiting for you that your past has never seen. Think about that. Your past cannot tell you everything about your future because your future contains people, places, experiences, and possibilities that your past has never encountered. So if someone is coming towards you now, don't make them pay for a crime they didn't commit. Don't make them prove themselves against a person they never knew. Give them the chance to be themselves. And give yourself the chance to discover something different. Maybe love doesn't need to arrive like a storm. Maybe it can arrive like peace. Maybe you don't need butterflies that make you lose your balance. Maybe you need a person, someone whose presence doesn't create confusion. Someone whose silence doesn't feel like punishment. Someone who can disagree with you without disrespecting you. Someone who can hear your fears without using them against you. Someone who understands that vulnerability is not weakness. And maybe when you find that kind of connection, you'll realize why the others never worked. Not because you weren't worthy, not because you weren't lovable, but because they weren't the right place for the heart you were carrying. Sometimes we spend years trying to make the wrong relationship feel right. We keep explaining ourselves, we keep lowering our expectations, we keep accepting less, we keep hoping that one day the other person will finally become who we need them to be. And then someone comes along who doesn't require all that effort just to receive basic understanding. You don't have to convince them that your feelings matter. They already care. You don't have to chase them into giving you attention. They want to know how your day went. You don't have to wonder whether you matter. They make room for you. And suddenly, love doesn't feel like a battle. It feels like two people walking in the same direction. That's the kind of moment you shouldn't miss. Because sometimes we don't lose love because it wasn't there. We lose it because we were too afraid to believe it was real. We wait for certainty that no human being can give us. We want guarantees. We want promises about forever. We want proof that nothing will ever change. But life doesn't work that way. Nobody can promise you that tomorrow will look exactly like today. What someone can promise is how they intend to show up today. And tomorrow, they'll have another opportunity to choose you, and the day after that, another. That's how lasting love is created, not through one enormous promise, but through thousands of small choices, choosing honesty, choosing patience, choosing kindness, choosing communication, choosing forgiveness, choosing growth, choosing each other, even when the excitement of the beginning has become the ordinary beauty of everyday life. So don't miss the moment, because you're waiting for a perfect guarantee. You may never get one. Instead, look for something more meaningful. Look for consistency, look for respect, look for peace, look for someone whose actions match their words, and then ask yourself whether you're willing to step forward too. Because love cannot be built by one person standing at the door. Someone has to open it. Someone has to take the first step. Someone has to say what they feel. And sometimes both people are standing on opposite sides of the same door, waiting for the other to move first. Pride keeps them apart, fear keeps them silent, and time keeps passing. Maybe this is why the moment matters, because there are moments that don't return in exactly the same form. A conversation can happen only once. A particular opportunity can appear only once. A person can be ready today and uncertain tomorrow. That doesn't mean you should rush, it means you should be present. If you care, be honest. If you miss someone, acknowledge it. If you want to repair something, speak. If you love someone and the relationship is healthy and mutual, don't let unnecessary pride become the reason you lose what mattered. There is nothing impressive about pretending you don't care. There is nothing strong about emotional distance when all you really want is connection. Strength can look like honesty. Strength can sound like, I was hurt, but I still want to understand. It can sound like, I'm scared, but I'm willing to try. It can sound like, I don't know where this will lead, but I don't want fear to make the decision for me. That is courage. And perhaps that's what this moment is asking from you. Not to know the entire future, just to take the next honest step. Maybe the person you're thinking about is doing the same thing. Maybe they're fighting their own fears. Maybe they wonder whether you still care. Maybe they are waiting for a sign that it is safe to approach you. Maybe they don't know how to begin. And maybe neither of you needs a perfect beginning. Maybe you simply need a sincere one, a simple conversation, a genuine apology, a quiet I miss you, a truthful can we talk. Sometimes an entire future begins with a sentence that takes 5 seconds to say, and years later you realize those 5 seconds changed everything. So don't underestimate small moments, don't underestimate a sincere message, don't underestimate a hand reaching toward you, don't underestimate the person who keeps showing up, don't underestimate your own heart. It has survived things you once thought would destroy you, and yet you're still here, still capable of hope, still capable of love, still capable of believing that something better might exist. That alone is beautiful. You don't need to become fearless. You only need to stop allowing fear to make every decision for you, because fear will always have a reason. There will always be something that could go wrong. There will always be uncertainty. There will always be a possibility of disappointment. But there is also another possibility that it works, that the conversation goes well, that the person stays, that the connection becomes something deeper, that the two of you grow together, that the thing you were afraid to begin becomes the thing you're most grateful you didn't miss. You cannot know which future will happen before you take the step. That's the nature of life. You step forward, you learn, you adjust, you grow, and you continue. Maybe love isn't asking you to guarantee tomorrow. Maybe it's simply asking you to be honest today. So when the moment arrives, when you feel that familiar pull in your heart, when the person you thought was gone suddenly feels close again, when life gives you an opportunity to speak instead of remain silent, don't let fear automatically say no, pause, breathe. Listen to yourself, Ask whether the fear is protecting you from a genuine danger or simply protecting you from vulnerability, because those are not the same thing. And if the answer is vulnerability, maybe it's time to be brave, maybe it's time to open the door, maybe it's time to stop running from something your heart has been quietly asking you to understand. Not because you need someone to save you, but because you are finally ready to share your life with someone who wants to walk beside you. And if that person is coming toward you with honesty, meet them there, not halfway through losing yourself, but halfway through building something real. Bring your boundaries, bring your wisdom, bring your scars, bring your hope, bring everything you've learned, and let the future decide what the two of you can become. Because sometimes the moment we've been waiting for doesn't look like a miracle. It looks like a person standing in front of us, waiting to see whether we will finally choose courage over fear.